Now, if while I read that list of 24 traits, you found yourself saying, "That's me," after every single one of them, probably humility is not going to be at the top of the list. A remarkable thing is going to happen today. You, a human being, a moral agent, accountable before God, you are going to change. Could be for the better, I sure hope it is. Could be a little, could be quite a lot. Could be with God's help, not just your own effort. But by the time you go to bed tonight, you and I are going to be one day different than we were when we got started. So let's ask God for help. Let's see what might happen today. Because one thing I know for sure, you will never get this day again, and neither will I. Change starts today. And here's the question I want to ask you in these few moments together. Who are you at your best? I'd like you to think about some time in your life. Maybe you faced a challenge, you were able to help somebody, you were able to make a contribution, you were able to persist, you were able to show some effort, or people have given you some feedback. That was really good, that was really you. What do you like when you are at your best? Now, as we look at change and character and virtue, we have to be wide open to what our weaknesses are, what my flaws are, how do I examine my sin. But I can't get stuck there. I was hearing from Nancy about somebody who knows me pretty well, who had something pretty negative to say about the way I had navigated a pretty important journey in life. And they may well be right. They may well see things inside me that I don't. I need to be very open and non-defensive, and I can tell from the way that my mind works, the way I would like to defend myself, even right now as I think about this, that I have a lot of growing to do and a long ways to go. But I also know that if I live simply dwelling on what is negative about me, there is not a force strong enough to pull me to what is good. So we're looking today at what's called the VIA survey. I'll tell you a little bit about the background of it. If you haven't taken it yet, you can go ahead and do that to help you identify what are sometimes called your signature strengths. There was a psychologist, probably the most famous psychologist in our day, Martin Seligman, who was the president of the American Psychological Association, 1998. You're supposed to have a theme. You play that role for 1 year. And Seligman decided that this would be his theme, that psychology as a discipline was focused far too much on what's wrong with people, what's wrong with life, than what's it like when life goes right. According to one study, Roger Bretherton talks about this, for every one study that researched something good, hope, joy, love, there were 28 papers published, 28 studies done on what's wrong with human beings. Seligman said, as a discipline now, we are far out of balance. And so he convened 55 of the top psychologists in the world, and they spent several years studying what are those character qualities or virtues or moral strengths that have been looked up to, admired across all times and all places. They looked across religions. So whether you're Christian, Islam, Jewish, Hindu, Confucianism, and so secular, Greek philosophy. They looked for traits that were ubiquitous, and they had folks that would go to the Maasai tribe in Kenya or to Inuits in Iceland and ask, do these make sense to you? And they found what they ultimately identified as 24 character strengths. And if you take that survey, we sent out a link. You can see where you grade out on all of those which are strongest. I had a good friend named Dave, it's a true story, who taught abnormal psychology, and he would sometimes teach it illustrating different forms of pathology by women he had previously dated, because he had dated somebody that matched every one of those categories. But there was this problem in psychology. We had very carefully worked out areas of pathology, but not strengths. So what I want to do right now is to read for you these 24 character strengths. I'll go through them very quickly. Just listen quickly. And when you find the one, or maybe it's two, but just focus on one where you think, I think that might be true of me at my best. Hold on to it. Here we go. Creativity, curiosity, judgment, love of learning, perspective. Is that you? Bravery, perseverance, honesty, zest, love, kindness, social intelligence, teamwork, fairness, leadership, forgiveness, humility, prudence, self-regulation, appreciation of beauty and excellence, gratitude, hope, humor, spirituality. Now, if while I read that list of 24 traits, you found yourself saying, that's me after every single one of them, probably humility is not going to be at the top of the list. But taking the survey, if you want to do it, or just simply going through that list and doing a little self-assessment, maybe asking one or two people in your life, is a very important intervention in looking at how God has created you. Another way of going after this is, which one of those traits, what word, what quality, if it was absent from your life, if you were not given the opportunity to exercise it, would make you feel like, I can't really be me? And this deep commitment to character and character formation has been a part of human beings at its best, although in our day, we tend to focus much more on personality or temperaments or abilities or talents. One of the great studies in character formation, I think, is Abraham Lincoln. We may talk about him a bit more as we go through this. But Lincoln wrote a letter to his best friend, Joshua Speed, 1842. He had apparently made a commitment to marry Todd. They eventually got married, and then Lincoln felt like he reneged on it. And this is what he wrote. Fascinating language. He says, Speed, I must regain confidence in my ability to keep my resolves once they are made. In that ability, you know, I once prided myself as the only or chief gem of my character. That gem I lost. How and when, you know too well. I have not yet regained it, and until I do, I cannot trust myself in my matter of much importance. Lincoln was mostly focused not on his temperament, not on his personality, not on his charms, not on his talents, on his character. And he regarded this as the gem of his character, his ability to keep resolves once he made them. And he did regain this. He took it so seriously that he was not ready to make a deep resolve until he was quite confident that he would be able to honor that. And eventually he did get married to marry Todd Lincoln. And Lincoln at his best was someone who made and called other people to keep deep resolve. The most famous speech probably in American history is the Gettysburg Address. And if you know it, you might remember in the final sentence, Lincoln says, we here highly resolved, we here now together as a nation, highly resolved that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation shall receive a new birth in liberty, that racial slavery would be ended, that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. What's the gem of your character? I don't mean this in a self-congratulatory, I get to pat myself on the back way. How has God created you with his unique thumbprint so that when you are exercising this character quality, this strength, you are most you? I think of my friend Rick Langlow. I worked for Rick many, many years at Menlo Church. And Rick was a remarkably humble person. Often when people are engaged in leadership, you'll hear folks say, you know, if you want to have smart people, you got to be a 10 in smartness, and then you can get 8s or 9s or 7s in smart to follow you or so on. The thing about Rick was he lived and worked and served out of his humility. And because his humility was so great and so deep, and people trusted it so much, then folks who were unbelievably smart or unbelievably high functioning in other ways would want to be on Rick's team purely because of his character. I think of my friend Gary Moon and the gift of humor, that character strength. I can think of times being in supervision with Gary where we would be laughing so hard we would be rolling on the floor crying. Gary, when he's with a group of people, if there's tension or boredom or stagnation or something, he will say something really funny And he will get all red in his face and he'll scan everybody. And if everybody doesn't laugh immediately, he will just apologize and change the subject. But if they do, he will laugh until he cries. The question today is, what's that word that you most resonate with that is a character strength, a good quality that God has placed in you that when you are at your best, you use? And how can you use it in different contexts? Maybe you're quite disciplined and you exercise that at school or at work, but you haven't really been practicing that at home. Or maybe you have quite a lot of compassion and you use that at home, but you're not using that in the workplace. What is that character quality that God has placed in you that God wants to bring out more and more and more? So carry that one word with you today. Look for it. Ask God to clarify it for you. Give you chances to exercise it. And then we'll begin to look at how do we cultivate each of these qualities in our lives. Change starts today.
Hey, I'm Tim. Thanks for joining us. Before you leave, you can subscribe to this channel or like this video or comment on the video. We love to read those comments. We read them every day, so we'd love to hear from you there. If you'd like to receive the emails that go along with each video, you can let us know at becomenew.com/subscribe. Or if you have a prayer request, we would love to pray for you. You can text that request to 855-888-0444. See you next time.